Hello and welcome to the e-Spurs podcast. It's Sunday the 9th of August. If you're a first time listener, welcome to the show. We record each and every Sunday night throughout the season. And if you like what you hear, as we always say on the show, there's multiple ways for you to get in touch with all things e-Spurs. You can, of course, follow us on the Twitter account at @e_Spurs, on our Facebook page, which is e-Spurs page, all one word. And new for this season, you can follow us on our Google Plus page and our YouTube page. And you can get the links for all of those social media platforms on our website, which is www.espurs.blogspot.co.uk. So now there's no excuse not to stay in touch with the gang at e-Spurs. The one form of contact that I'm most excited about this season, as I said on last week's show, is our brand new e-Spurs fan phone. As of this season, you can now call e-Spurs, leave a message and have your say on anything from the show or just Spurs in general. So if you're ever listening to the show at home and think you want to have your shout on anything THFC, on anything from the show, then pick up the phone and give us a call. The lines are open 24 hours a day. It's a message only line. So if you don't like talking to a human voice, then not to worry. It's an answer phone service, and give us a call. The important thing to remember is it's a mobile line, a mobile phone number. So it may be expensive to call, especially if you're calling from overseas, and e-Spurs are not responsible for the cost of any call made to us. If you're calling from the UK, it should be the cost of a normal mobile call. Here's the number you need. Save it to your phone and get in touch with us at any time on e-Spurs. It's 0749 714 8049. If you're calling from outside the UK, just delete the first 0, add a 44, and it becomes 0144 749 714 8049. So there's loads of ways now to get in touch with the gang at e-Spurs. Give us a call on that number. Tonight we'll be looking back at Saturday's defeat at Old Trafford and previewing the first home game of the season against Stoke at the Lane, and asking, should Trippier dispose Walker at right back? Somehow we're going to try and get that into the next 45 minutes, lads. But if anyone can do it, I'm sure these guys can. Let's introduce the team for you, as always, on the e-Spurs podcast. First of all, I'll tell you what, let's go over to Chicago, the Windy City. It's Mark Ashhead. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right. I don't quite know how to take the rest of this week and weekend and really, process it, but I guess that's what this next hour will do, right?
Absolutely. See it as therapy, Mark. That's what it is. That's what we do anyway, isn't it, Coatsy? Introduce the rest of the gang. Over in Barbados, it's the most laid-back guy in the world of podcasting. It's John Coppin. How you doing, mate?
I'm very good. Hi, everybody.
All right, John. Great to have you on, mate, as always. And last but not least, completing the panel, it's the guy you may hear from on our Twitter account. He tweets on there occasionally, and also, of course, regular on the show. It's Coatsy. How you doing?
Evening, Andy. Evening, lads.
Evening, mate. Great to have you all on, as always. Now, another new feature of the show this season is that every week we try and get a member of the Spurs supporting public on the show. Last week, we, of course, had Jason from the Spurs shop over in Thailand. So if you haven't listened to that one, it's a great show. Try and listen to that one if you can. This week, we've got a guest from the UK. He writes his own Spurs blog, big Spurs supporter, of course. It's Atour. How you doing, mate?
Hey, hi, Andy. Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Not too bad.
Great to have you on, Atour. Just tell us a little bit, as always, if you can, about your Spurs supporting history, your blog, if you can, and how long you've been writing on the blog.
Yeah, sure, certainly. Happy to. My kind of origins as a Spurs fan is quite a weird one, actually, because my dad was an Arsenal fan.
Oh, dear.
But as like any kid rebelling against authority, I went and picked their closest rivals. I think probably the pivotal season was 83-84. I would have been 7 years old at the time. All my mates were Liverpool fans, as everyone seemed to be at that time. But Spurs had a really good team, so Ozzy, Glenn, etc., and they really had my attention at the time. There was also opposite my school at the time, Steve Perriman had a sports shop in Greenford, West London, emblazoned with his name and the old Spurs logo and everything. So there was a lot of subliminal messaging going on there.
Yeah.
I think the night I probably made the decision was the 84 UEFA Cup final against Anderlecht. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was our TV stopped working on a day, and my dad and I ended up listening to it on the radio. My dad was one of these old-fashioned fans who supported any English team in Europe, so I mean, we kind of enjoyed that night, and the excitement and tension got me that evening. And the rest is history. I got my first Spurs shirt from Steve Perriman's shop the next day.
Arthur, it's interesting. You just mentioned there about the 84 night, and that was what encouraged you to support Spurs. I know I've spoken to Mark, a few times about how he came to support Spurs, and it was the Champions League season. So there's certainly something in that when the club's successful and big nights like that, it certainly pulls the support in, doesn't it?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, a lot of people start supporting a club because it runs through their family or whatever. But I guess another really common way of doing it is if a team, you see them playing well, you see them winning things, and they kind of capture your imagination, and you like how they play. So yeah, certainly, I'm sure a lot of Spurs fans, through the occasional good times that we've had, have ended up supporting Spurs through those means. It's just a shame we don't have more of them a bit more often, to be honest.
Well, let's hope there's more to come, and fan base is great at the moment. So let's hope the club can give something back to all those fans that have been through thick and thin. And just tell us a bit about the blog, if you can, Atour. How long have you been writing now?
Well, I've been writing on and off for various places for a couple of years now, but I decided to create my own one a few months back. It was really kind of in the early part of the pre-season. In the past, I've written for the Fighting Cock website, which a lot of people kind of use, and other places. But yeah, I've started a few months back. Have got a few articles on there now. It's called Hurricane Season, as in obviously hurricane with a Harry Kane reference in there. So it's hurricaneseason.wordpress.com. So yeah, I started writing that a couple of months back, and things have been really positive. Had a lot of good feedback from people, so that's always a good start.
Fantastic. Well, good luck with that, mate. And just repeat that address if you can.
Yeah, sure. It's Hurricane Season with a K in hurricane.wordpress.com.
Great stuff. Well, all the best with that. Keep flying the flag, as we always say, and hopefully you'll get a few views after the show. Fantastic.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you very much.
No problem. Okay, let's get on with the show, lads. We've got our team in place, and let's kick off with yesterday's game. Still fresh in the memory, of course, the first game of the season up at Old Trafford. First off, last week we asked our lads for their predictions, and here's what they thought would happen at Old Trafford. Coatsy, first of all.
I'm going to go 1-1.
1-1. AD?
I'm going to go 2-2 just to be different to Coatsy, but I actually agree with Coatsy and think 1-1.
Okay, 2-2. So all draws so far, John?
Yeah, I'm going to go 1-1. We can't keep clean sheets. So
It's like another true Spurs fan. And finally, Jason?
I fear they'll have just a little bit too much for us, and it might be 2-1, 2-0. But as I said, I think all I want from it is a much better performance than the one we got there last year, because we went there so confident last year, and it was, I think, the game that we were so looking forward to, and it was just, the game was gone before it had even started. We were 2 down in 20 minutes, and it was 2-0 going on 5-0 after 20 minutes, and it was just a real disappointment last year. So, if we go up there and we do lose 2-1, but we give a decent account of ourselves, I think I'd probably take that on the opening day. But, hopefully things go our way and we can nick something.
So those were the thoughts of the lads on last week's show. Coatsy, coming to you first up. We lost, obviously, yesterday by 1-0. Neither team really shone, did they? And just checking the possession before the show there, 50% possession for both sides. So it was a very even game.
Yeah, it was a tight game. I don't know what the lads think, and they'll probably, as we go further in, we'll probably find out what they thought. But I thought the tempo had a real kind of feel of a pre-season friendly at times. I know it was a lunchtime kickoff. It was very warm on the pitch, but Spurs started off really well. I thought in the period before the goal, I thought we were imposing our play, and we were doing okay. The goal then knocked us back for a little while, and I think we were glad to get into half-time at 1-0, despite Man United not really creating any chances. They did have a lot of possession. And then I think second half, once again, I thought we started the second half a little bit sluggishly. Then we imposed ourselves again, I thought. And then probably the last 10 minutes, really, we started to kind of cause United problems. So I know we lost, and it was disappointing. I said last week that I thought the best time to catch Manchester United was actually on the first day. And I think if you look at the other teams, Chelsea, Arsenal, around the first game of the season, the results proved this weekend that it probably is the best time to catch the top four teams. Even though I was really disappointed, I thought I think there was more positives than really I thought there would be, if I'm honest.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a strange old game, wasn't it? Because we had that first 20 minutes, as we always seem to do at Old Trafford, and then we're sort of sucker punch, weren't we? And John, it seems to be a recurring theme, doesn't it? When we play at Old Trafford, you can almost script it before the game's even going to happen. We have a great spell, lose an unlucky goal, and then United come into the game, and that was the story again yesterday.
Yes, the good thing was that we stood up. I mean, just like what David was saying, for about 20 minutes or so, I wouldn't say the heads dropped, but a lot of the intensity and the fire went out of our bellies. But, got in at halftime, had a breather, and came out. And the good thing about this team, we are very fit. If you look at, we only had maybe a day and a half's rest from that Mickey Mouse tournament. Shouldn't call it that, but and at the end we finished far the stronger. So it's that's one of the positives for the season, that these guys have got a lot of fire in their legs, and we started to overrun them a bit at the end, even though we didn't really create anything clear. But I think we were huffing and puffing, but we never ever really looked like we were going to get a goal, if I'm being honest. But it's a start of the season, so let's see how things go from here.
Absolutely, it's very early days. Get the Old Trafford game out of the way. I was extremely disappointed yesterday, but now I think, as Coatsy mentioned, Coatsy makes a great point that having seen some of the results since the the Arsenal result today, it puts it into a bit of perspective, doesn't it? John, you mentioned there the pre-season tournament. Do you think having played that so close to the season had any effect on the performance?
I expected it to. I was pleasantly surprised that we didn't run out of fire. I figured that, burn out after an hour and we would have faded, but it was the other way around. Near the end, it was United that were holding on. So the guys are very fit, but I really would have loved to have seen us not play that tournament. Not as an excuse, but it would have been good to have a full week to focus, and maybe things would have been a bit different. But you are right. If you look at the results, there's nothing to be ashamed of. Quite a few people would have taken that performance yesterday if you look at what the results have been.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you factor in the fact that it was a very lucky goal that we lost by. It's no disgrace ever losing at Old Trafford, is it really? But
he made up about 20 yards. It shows you the frightening pace he's got. If you look at that replay over and over, it's amazing he got anywhere near him. He made up 20 yards. He's unbelievable pace.
He did, and also we're coming on to Kyle Walker later on in the show. But Mark, who shone for you yesterday?
I was actually thinking about that myself. The strength came in the team play. I don't think there was a particular individual that really, shined. The back four did very well. I was surprised to see that Ben Davies wasn't troubled more than he was. I thought Walker did very well with Ashley Young and sort of subduing him. Outside of the back four, though, I really don't see many individual performances that stood out. I thought Eriksson did decently well. He should have finished his chance, but was anonymous for large parts of the game. Chadley was anonymous for even larger parts. There were a few chances he had that he had a few seconds open in the box and just didn't pick out a pass at all and kind of stood on the ball too long. Kane was isolated. I thought Dembele did a good job of winning the ball back and holding it up, but didn't really offer a lot going forward. In our central midfield pairing, Bentaleb had his worst game in probably a year or so, and Dyer did actually remarkably well considering he hasn't played as a center mid in 2 or 3 years since his Sporting days. But again, you can tell that's not a position for him. That's not where he should stay. So mean, overall, decent team performance, but individual-wise, there's a lot of improvements to make, and I think this game made it abundantly clear where we still need to address some weaknesses, and hopefully, in the next 2 or 3 weeks we do.
Yeah, as you say, we've got a couple of weeks now to the transfer window closes, and Spurs have left it late again, haven't they? But let's hope they do see what we see and address those weaknesses. Atour, we mentioned Eriksen there. Eriksen's been, for the last, let's say, 6 months or so, he's had a funny time of it at Spurs, hasn't he? He had a great start to last season, the first half of last season, but since he's drifted in and out of games, hasn't he? Do you think that's his problem personally, or do you think that it's the system that hampers him?
Yeah, I agree. He's had a bit of a up and down last 6 months. I think one of the main issues is that creatively and going forward, so much of it rests on his shoulders. It's a lot for any player to take on, no matter how talented they are. So, I mean, obviously, last season he suffered a lot in the tail end with fatigue, having just played so many games. This season, obviously, we've just started, but again, you can see from our performances that we're so dependent on him to create something. A lot of our other attacking midfield players tend to either be expected to track back or get in the penalty area and get on the end of passes. So a lot of it seems to rest with him, and I think that that's tactics based, obviously, and I think possibly the arrival of someone like Alex Pritchard coming in, who can maybe allow Eriksen to take a rest every now and again, I think will help, just to kind of take a little bit of the expectation off him. A lot of it, yeah, I think it's a combination of things, really.
I want to chime in here because I think Christian Eriksen's number one supporter on this podcast through thick and thin. He can't do anything wrong. And I think this is another case, as Arthur just said, the system really does rely on him, and it isolates a lot of our playmakers in general. I mean, Harry Kane, as a single striker, is really isolated up there. And it really is Eriksen's job to stay close to the striker, yet also be part of the build-up. And there's just not enough space for it. The system demands some central midfielders that are deeper lying that can actually spur an attack and kind of get things going. And right now we just don't have it. So we're relying on, Chadley making late runs. We're relying on, right wing, we really don't have a clear first choice. And we're relying on Eriksen to essentially get two players, Chadley and Kane, into goal-scoring positions rather than it being a whole team movement. So I think he needs to move a little bit deeper. And I don't think in the 4-2-3-1 system that there's really a spot to do that. He was a 4-3-3 player, 4-3-3 midfielder coming in, and I think that this system kind of stifles his strengths a little bit.
Mark, do you think maybe that it's a little bit more simple than that, in that maybe he just needs to sometimes grab the game by the scruff of the neck and be a little bit more assertive in there?
I think there are times last year, and I think in the last 5 or 10 minutes of this past game, he did do that. There are times where he'll just pick up the ball and try to run at defenders, but you can only do that so many times, and he's not allowed space to do that. I think a lot of the times that Eriksen does give the ball out, he's trying to spring players forward or trying to put the ball where players should be. And I think, there's not a cohesive attacking unit right now, and he suffers from that. And I think it's, all of our attacking players suffer from it. There's not many instances where you can see a perfectly orchestrated counterattack or a buildup of play where everyone is on the same page and linking up and one-touching. We just haven't seen that more than a handful of times in the last year or so.
Yeah, it's very true. And just, Coatsy, I'm going to put you on the spot here for a moment. Watching the West Ham performance today against Arsenal, what sprung out to me most of all, more than anything, was the fact that West Ham looked as if they were playing for each other. They were fighting, weren't they? And the pace. Now, we mentioned the pace constantly on this show, mention it to death. I just wonder, Do you think Maurizio Pochettino may have made a huge error in isolating Lennon as quickly as he has done, and bearing in mind the pace that he could offer the side?
No, I don't think he has. I think if you look at Lennon over the last couple of years, he's basically turned into almost an extension of a fullback at times. His best work has been while he's been helping the fullback. If you look at the last time that Lennon really had a match-changing game where he either scored goals or he made any chances, it was very thin, to be honest. I think Lennon has had his time at the club. I think everyone does. Everyone at a club really has their period. He's played well over 300 games for Spurs, and I enjoyed watching him. But there comes a time when really I think you have to be making an impact, and Lennon didn't. Now, I do agree with a lot of what was said there. We still need pace. I don't think Lennon's the answer, but we definitely need some pace on that wing.
Would he not be able to do a job off the bench, Coatsy, do you think?
Possibly, but would Aaron Lennon want to sit on a bench? He's still He's still in the prime of his career, really, in terms of age.
Yeah.
He's been with Spurs since he was a kid, a youngster, and he's had a number of years here. Aaron Lennon doesn't want to sit on the bench. He wants to go and play first-team football. If we're talking about Lennon in particular, I'm very surprised the deal hasn't been done with Everton, because from what we were led to believe, he had a massive impact there. I never really thought that in terms of Lennon. He had a couple of good games and he scored a goal, if I remember correctly. Everton haven't really pushed for a deal, and it looks like Morelos is probably going to stay there. But that doesn't take away from the fact that I think we need genuine pace and we need genuine quality. I think that if Townsend is going to stay, he's got a massive opportunity because the team does lack pace. So he's really got to have a season really where he steps up to the mark and basically show some quality as well as the pace he's got. Because if you look at wingers, and I think we can all name wingers who've had bundles of pace, but don't really make the impact in terms of chances made or goals scored. So I take the view that we do need some pace, and I also agree that we need to give Eriksen some support. Don't be so reliant on him. But I also agree with you, Andy, and I think your point is important, because a lot of people who've worked with Eriksen, including his international manager, and a lot of people who talk around the game, even Glenn Hoddle mentioned it on Saturday, sometimes he does need to take the game by the scruff of the neck. He does go missing for quite a long time. Now, if some of that is the system, I'd take that on board. But he has had games where we've played in the same system and he's had excellent games. So I think if he can just, I think you used the word, be a bit more assertive at times, then maybe we'll see a bigger impact from him.
Yeah, absolutely, and there's no doubt the quality of the guy is there. I mean, we saw last season he practically carried us through the.
Yeah, he's got massive quality. To me, he's got all the skills a footballer should have. And I think when he's on his game, he's exciting to watch, and his passing range is excellent. He's very clever. At times, he can remind you of Hoddle. You know, that way that he plays the game. He hasn't got the full range of passing that Glenn had, but he is very clever. He's very intelligent. And I think if we could find a way to get him into the game a little bit more, that would be great. But I also think that when we are having difficult moments in games, maybe he just has to front up a little bit more.
Yeah, the quality's there without doubt. So I'm sure that with confidence and with time, hopefully that will come again. And as I say, the free kicks he scored last season, the goals he scored last season were crucial to what we did. John, with regards to the defence, the first outing for the Belgian lads, how well did you think they did yesterday?
I think they were superb. If you can look at what we usually do, you're always looking for a clanger or a pretty big mistake. But we were pretty solid at the back, and you can't really see many instances where we looked like we were going to be, opened up. I mean, obviously, a few little errors and slips will come along, but we were really, really solid, and we looked like we were going to hold out. Obviously, that loss of possession and Bentaleb give the ball away, but that happens. That's football. But they were really solid. You could tell that they've been playing together for a while. For once, we look really, really assured. I think bigger tests will come because United didn't really push at us a lot. They'd be more potent attacking forces. And we probably played at the right time, as was said at the start of the program. But I'd have to give a passing grade. I thought they were impressive. They looked assured. And we always drop a clang, and there's always a mistake waiting for happen. If you're watching Spurs, you think, oh no, what's going to happen now? But at no time yesterday, you could really relax. It looked comfortable. It looked like they were in control. So far, so good.
Absolutely. And Atour, just to finish up on the Man United segment of the show, we've spoken about Spurs, but Manchester United also yesterday, they looked very, very ordinary, didn't they? Especially when you consider the amount of money they've spent in the summer.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, before the game, I identified their centre of their defence as being a weak point, although obviously they held up against us yesterday. But yeah, I mean, going forward, they didn't really offer much in terms of creating chances. I mean, if anything, we probably had the better share of them, but they just obviously kind of benefited from a stroke of luck with the own goal. Yeah, I mean, the amount of attacking talent they've got in their midfield and up front, it was frightening on paper. And yeah, I really expected a lot more from them, especially if they're going to be competing for the league at the end of the season. I guess one standout I was really impressed with was their right back, Darmian, I think he was called. He was a threat whenever he had the ball. And they seem to be targeting Kyle Walker down our right as well. So Ashley Young looked decent, but yeah, again, I mean, I would have expected better from the investment that they've made. All in all, I think, as I think Coatsy mentioned at the beginning, it had an air of a pre-season game. To be honest, it wasn't as kind of high octane as you would expect on the opening day. So I expect to see better from both teams later on in the season.
Yeah, and I'm sure there will be better to come. Let's hope so. And of course, on to Stoke on Saturday at White Hart Lane. Listen, lads, we're going to move on to the Twitter question of the week. Every week now we put a question out on our social media platform on the Twitter for a response from followers, and we'll then read out the best of those on the show each week. This week's question was, should we start with Walker or Trippier? And as always, the lads have got the responses from our Twitter feed. Let's start with Mark.
So it looks like our very own John prefers Kyle Walker. Dean Merrick says that Walker should continue to start and that he can't be blamed for the own goal. Pete Peterson says Walker offers nothing in defense or attack. His pace only comes in handy when he's out of position and needs to get back. So he's the lone dissent. And Connor Anderson says Walker deserves another game after his performance yesterday. Apart from the own goal, he was brilliant, which I think I personally agree with.
Yes, it's fair point, isn't it? Fair point. John.
Okay. Andy Jeffrey said Trippier all day long. Danny Morris was saying start Yedlin.
Wow.
San Rafael Tottenham said Walker until he has a bad day, and we all want Trippier. Hopefully Trippier is as good or better, and then I don't care who. And the last person, Carol, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Gosen, says Walker.
Okay, so at the moment, it seems as if the general consensus is to carry on with Walker in there. Coatsy?
Yeah, Mohamed Jazari says Walker all the way. Matt Ford is definitely a Trippier person because he said surely not a serious question. He says Trippier is more consistent, better delivery, better defensively. Josh Lay says definitely Trippier. And Perry Hicks is another person who really wants to see more Yedlin. So he doesn't want either. He wants Yedlin in.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's a nice problem to have, having the three of them in there. And Yedlin, you could argue, Coatsy, I guess, has been the unlucky one of the three, isn't he?
Yeah, well, I think we said when we had our summer shows that we were surprised that Trippier was actually purchased, considering we had Yedlin. I think Yedlin has the potential to be a very good player. I think there is a lot of people who are very suspicious now of his purchase. And was it just a kind of commercial transfer? I think he's actually got a lot going for him, but I can see him getting some loan experience. I think maybe that might be one of our further outs that happen in the next few weeks, that he might go somewhere on loan.
Would any of the team go for Trippier? Any of the lads?
I think if you look at yesterday, apart from the goal, which I think we all agree wasn't his fault, I think he had a decent game against Ashley Young. I'm probably Walker's one of his biggest critics. But I think if you buy someone behind him, like we done with Danny Rose last season, I think it has the potential to really bring Walker back up to the way or his form that he had 3 years ago. So I think for now, I think we should keep Walker in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a nice part. Atour, Trippier did very, very well, didn't he, in pre-season?
Yeah. I mean, he was impressive. I was more impressed. I saw he looked better than I expected him to be honest. Having not seen much of him last season, he's certainly a useful player to have to obviously kind of start games occasionally and to push Kyle Walker. But I think opposite to Coatsy, I'm a bit of a Kyle Walker apologist. He arguably, I'd say, a couple of years ago was one of the best right backs in the league. But with him, fitness is so important. I think he's twice the player when he's 100% fit. Obviously, he's had a lot of injury problems the last couple of years, but this summer and obviously or Saturday, he looks in really good shape, more so than he has been for a couple of seasons now. So I think in a similar way that we did with Danny Rose last season, I think we need to give Walker a chance to earn his place now that he's got actual proper competition, and hopefully it should spur him, no pun intended, to raise his performance levels and fight off Trippier. But again, if it doesn't, we've got seemingly a really good backup or seemingly a really good replacement to come in.
Yeah, it's a nice problem to have, isn't it? Especially when you consider the stick that Trippier was getting from some quarters before the season had even started. I think most Spurs fans were a little unsure about him, weren't they? Considering he'd just come from Burnley, who were relegated. Will he be able to make the step up? But the pre-season, you can't always judge on pre-season, but it was promising, certainly promising. And the crosses he seemed to get over looked like, dare I say it, just the sort of stuff that Soldado would feed off of. So let's see. It's a nice problem to have, and as you say, the competition will be good in there to have. Lads, let's look forward to Saturday. Next Saturday, we have got a home game against Stoke. Stoke have invested, haven't they? They were unlucky today against Liverpool, a late goal there. Coatsy, how do you think, bearing in mind Stoke are always tough to beat, aren't they, when they set up to play? How do you think that one might pan out?
Well, it was interesting today. I think they kind of looked at playing a 4-3-3, but they didn't really create much today. I watched the game and I was disappointed with Stoke, to be honest. I thought they would offer a lot more. It'll be interesting to see if they revert to a bit more of a packed midfield against us at the Lane. I'm not sure if they might give Peter Crouch a go next Saturday as a single striker up front. I know they played with Dove today, but he didn't have a good game. But it all depends really. I think they're going to do what they usually do at Spurs, pack the midfield, put everyone behind the ball when we have it, and then hope to get us on the break. So I think that if you look at Crouch, it doesn't really offer that in terms of the breakaway. So you may have Odin Wengi start or Doof keep his place. But it'll be interesting. It'd be interesting to see how they do it, because I know that every time they come to the Lane, they look to get us on the break. They look to absorb our pressure. They basically let us have the ball. I think it's going to be a tough game for us to break down Stoke. But I think if we get the early goal, that is so essential. If Spurs can get an early goal, then I think we'll be all right. Yeah,
I agree. It's all about how we start, as you say, and I think Stoke are one of those teams I hate playing against because they're gritty, aren't they? They leave everything out there on the pitch normally, and not necessarily the most attractive style of play. Although, having said that, they've just signed those 3 or 4 ex-Barcelona players, hadn't they, in the summer? So you'd expect them to play a better style of football. And last season we saw that under Mark Hughes, the style of football certainly improved. So, it's early days for them also in the season, I guess. Don't forget to give us a call and let us know what you think on 0749 7148049. Let us know what you think will happen next Saturday. Mark, it's an important game for, as we said, Eriksen to step up and connect with Harry Kane.
Yeah, Stoke is a team that scares me. Obviously, last year they beat us twice, and they looked very commanding in those matches. Also, they weren't really matches that we looked like we were ever likely to win, which is a sad state of affairs when it comes to that. But it's frustrating. You just mentioned they played 4-3-3 against Liverpool, and they played a little bit more open, and you just know they're gonna park the bus against us and set up to counter. Even though Liverpool is a team that's offensively much more prolific, it's almost like they could be playing Barcelona and they're going to play open and they're going to have a go at it. But when they play Spurs, they set up as defensively as possible. It's the most frustrating thing in the world. It's another game where our lack of pace and lack of width can really hurt us because of that reason. So unless we make some sort of tactical adjustments, I could see another match where it's really difficult to find room and to create chances.
John, Eric Dyer had a great game on Saturday. Do you expect to see him back in the same position, obviously depending on whether or not we make any defensive midfield signings before then? Would you expect him to play again in that area?
Yeah, more than likely, yeah. Also, Stoke, well, even though they're playing pretty good stuff, it's going to be a bit physical in there with Austin. With Adams. So I think he'll play. I'm pretty sure. I don't think he's a defensive midfielder by any means, but we haven't got any options at the minute, so I think it's nailed on. He'll start.
Yeah,
I personally think. Sorry, John. I think that Mason is, in my opinion, probably going to be more likely to start. He's always kind of been a bit of a Pochettino favourite since he broke into the team. I get the feeling he didn't play on Saturday simply because he wasn't match fit, but with a week of kind of training under his belt, I reckon he could come in instead of Dyer, but remains to be seen. But he certainly could be a bit more scrappy in that centre midfield, which we might need against Stoke.
Yeah, Atour, you make a great point there. Would you maybe look at starting, bearing in mind he again performed well in pre-season, would you maybe look at starting Dele Alli instead of Ryan Mason in there?
It's obviously a risk. He's inexperienced at this sort of level. Having not seen a massive amount of him before he joined Spurs, I don't know how kind of physical he can be in the midfield, which is probably something that we're going to need in that game. Having said that, he's obviously got a lot of talent. He's great on the ball. He's good at making runs. And I think something that works in his favour is he's a bit of an unknown quantity in the Premier League. He could have the potential to start that game and take it by storm if he gets off to a flyer. I do think it's probably a little bit too soon for him, though. Personally, I wouldn't risk it if it was me. But who knows what Mauricio Pochettino's planning for next weekend. But I probably think it would be too soon.
Yeah, you might well be right there, mate. Let's get some predictions from the lads then. Stoke on Saturday. Coatsy?
Yeah, I'm a little bit more confident about our defence after seeing how they played at Old Trafford. But I'm still not convinced we'll keep a clean sheet, so I'm going with a 2-1 win.
2-1, so a close, tight fought.
I think it will be, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I think you might be right. And John?
1-1. I can't see us upping that many teams as we're playing at the minute. We don't have a lot of goals in us at the minute. When we click later on, maybe, but right now we ain't got a lot of goals in us. So I say 1-1 because, just like David's saying, I can't see us keeping a clean sheet, even though we are better defensively. I think something will happen and a goal will go in. So yeah, 1-0, I think.
Yeah, we're of course sitting here and making these predictions, and we'll probably go out and sign 3 strikers tomorrow. So you completely wipe our predictions. But Mark,
2-1 with a late goal and after the 80th minute, similar to last year.
Does nothing for your nerves, those late goals.
It makes it more entertaining. We've got 60, 70 minutes of nothing really happening, and it springs up in the last minute. I don't know. It's for a team that isn't really creating much. It kind of keeps you interested.
Yeah, it certainly does. You know what I hope, just thinking about that now, is the one thing I hope to see at the Lane this season, especially, is the atmosphere to return. I know last season was tough for the fans who went along there, so I really hope to see, the fans become that 12th man again. And the away support we have, as everybody knows, is probably the best in the country, second to none. But the lane was very quiet last season, wasn't it? So let's hope that returns again and becomes a bit of a fortress for the side. Let's go to Atour, your prediction.
They obviously beat us twice last season. There's a potential again, but I can see from their lineup today that they were missing 3 players that caused us a lot of problems last season. In Zonzi, Victor Moses, and Bojan. So I think that's going to be a bit of a blow to them, and I can see us having a narrow win, either a 1-0 or a 2-1. I think.
Yeah, it's a great shout. Those players missing, they're sure. If that's correct, that's a huge blow for them, isn't it? So the chances will be there. We all seem to be sort of agreeing on a close win or a draw. Just Coatsy, just on that one, would you expect more? It's tough, isn't it? Because it's early in the season. But what are we saying by saying a close win against Stoke at home? What does that reflect to you?
It reflects the Premier League,
Yeah,
to be honest with you, Andy. Anyone can beat anyone on their given day. And I think in terms of, as we were saying, that listen, last Saturday just gone was a good time to face Man United. I think facing Spurs in August is a good time for anyone. We never seem to have our business done. I think Adi, who's normally on with us, predicted very early in the summer when we had our first show that Levy would leave it to the last couple of weeks. Levy then really come out and said that himself, that he would basically leave the market for the last couple of weeks. I think Spurs never seem to be set up right at the start of the season. We seem to have all our ducks in a row come September, deadline days done, etc. So I think August for us, if we can pick up a few wins, which is why I was really kind of pleased with our fixture list. I know every game's difficult, we know that, but I think you raised a point, Andy, that a lot of the teams that we're playing in August and early September were around 8th and below, which really helps us. But it tells you more about the nature of the Premier League rather than really should Spurs be just walking over anyone. No, we can't do that now, and I don't think really we ever did, because we were always a kind of a mistake away from getting beaten somewhere.
Yeah, it's a great point. The Premier League is so competitive, isn't it? And when you look at the other leagues in Europe, even the best leagues, you can pretty much predict the top 3 in Spain each year. You can pretty much predict the top 2 or 3 in Holland, and the Bundesliga, but the Premier League is so competitive. Anyone can beat anyone, as you say, and that's what makes it so watchable, isn't it? So it's a great point. Coatsy's mentioned there the transfer dealings, lads. Just to finish up on the show this week, we've got to mention, of course, Spurs have been linked with every Tom, Dick and Harry going. So, Mark, there's a couple in there that's been thrown into the mix, and there's a few more linked today. Who do you think is the most likely of those that have been linked to come in?
I think at this point, Clinton Ng from Lyon looks most likely. All reports in the media look like we're close to agreeing on a price. He's not playing for Lyon today. I'm not sure if that's because he has a knock or what the idea is, but I would say he's most likely. In terms of central mid, I really don't see anyone coming in, and that's most disconcerting than anything. And then, up top, it could be a late window move for Charlie Austin. It could be Berahino, which we're being linked to very heavily. But I would say Ng is the safest bet on being a Spurs player in the near future.
Looks that way. Also, Coatsy, Charlie Austin seems to be mentioned a few, more often in the press the last few days.
Yeah, Chris Ramsey said yesterday that basically after their game against Charlton that basically he wants to go and they're happy for him to leave. A lot of reports out today that they originally asking for 18 million. That was then put down to 15. But apparently now that they would accept 13 million if all the cash was up front rather than piecemeal. A lot of people speak about Austin in regards to his failed medical at Hull. He's played 148 games since that medical and scored 76 goals, 18 goals in the Premier League last season. He's within our range. I'm not convinced we'll go and get him. But I think if you offered me Austin or Berahino from West Brom, I would go for Charlie Austin.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Berahino, no doubt he's got talent, but for me, he's not there yet, and he's not really shown any signs that he will be that top quality striker that we need in years to come. He's had a good few spells here and there, but nothing that I don't think would frighten anyone. And that's the sort of striker I think we need. Someone that, like Kane, if you like, that other defences are going to fear. Because I've said this a few times, I don't think we've got enough players in our side that frighten other teams. Kane aside, Chadley chips in with the odd goal. Love Chadley to bits, but he's a little bit hot and cold as well, isn't he? But let's hope we get that striker in. John, just finally on the transfer front there, if we could only make one more signing, which position do you think is the most pressing?
I'd like another striker. I know we urgently need a defensive midfielder, but you don't want to mention what shouldn't be mentioned, but it's a complex sport. Anything can happen. And if we go in after the transfer window and there's only Harry Kane and he's out for 6 weeks, it's frightening to think what would happen. We need another striker. Austin has proven at this level he can score goals. I would like him. Berahino's potential, and I think that's where we'll go. We tend to go for somebody that we might be able to get money from, or we could, if anything goes wrong, release and sell. But Austin, to score that many goals in a team that played like that, if you look at his ratio to the goals of the side, I think they were one of the lowest scorers, or maybe the lowest scorers. And to score 18 goals in that team, he had a few little niggles here and there. They weren't creating a lot. He's a poacher, so he's not probably 100% ideal for our style, but he could do a job for us. And he's big, he's strong. We play one on top. That won't suit Berahino. Berahino will be the wide forward. If we're going to get NG, Berahino is going to be bench time. It's going to be between him and NG, so we can't buy two players when one of them is going to be on the bench. So Austin makes sense.
Yeah, certainly does. I really like the guy, the grit he has about him, the fight in him. Never say die. And I know Coates's mentioned a few of his QPR pals have said the same thing about Charlie Austin. He leaves everything out there on the pitch, I think Coatesy said last week. So, it's he wouldn't be a bad signing at all, would he? It's just, I think we're crying out for some pace. We really are. Anyway, I promise I won't mention that word again on the show. Atour, just to finish up, anybody you'd like to see? It's difficult. We're not necessarily spoilt for choice at this time of the transfer window, are we? When you leave it so late, that's the problem you're going to have. But anybody you'd like to see come in?
Yeah, I mean, other than the options that have already been listed by the other guys, there aren't a lot of other players out there who I think would be readily available and willing to move. One other one possibly to throw into the mix is Llorente at Juventus, who people seem to have mixed opinions on. But I mean, up until a year or so ago, he was one of the best centre forwards in Europe. But due to kind of not having a lot of game time last season at Juve, he's kind of maybe lost his luster a little bit. But he'd be a great experienced option up front. Other than that, I mean, personally, watching the game yesterday, I kind of realised just how much we're missing an experienced head in central midfield, especially when Schweinsteiger came on and he came on and he was, you could see it on TV and the commentator mentioned it, he was barking orders at his teammates around him, telling them where to move, where to pass. That sort of kind of general in the centre of midfield, and none of our current centre mids have that sort of experience or authority. I think the last time we had someone like that was probably Scott Parker or Edgar Davids. And it worries me we don't have any experience in central midfield. So options are limited, though. That's the problem. I don't know who we'd bring in at this moment in time. Everyone seems to be signing new contracts. But it's definitely something I hope we can address in the next 3 weeks or so.
Yeah, and you can guarantee that at 10 to midnight we'll be linked with a world-class superstar, and by a minute to midnight it will have fallen through, Mark. So, it's difficult, isn't it, as a Spurs fan on deadline day and leaving it so close. It's always a tricky one, but let's hope we get those players in. Lads, we've come to the end of the show for this week. Don't forget, if you're listening to the show and you want to get in touch, as we mentioned, earlier, you can give us a call and have your message played out on next week's show if you agree or disagree with the lads on the show this week, or anything to do with Spurs. Just give us a call on 0749 714 8049, or if you're calling from outside the UK, it's 0144 749 714 8049. So give us a call and let us know what you think. Lads, as always, it's been a pleasure. My thanks to John, David and Mark.
No problem.
Cheers, everybody.
And our guest this week, Atour, thanks for coming on, mate.
Nice one. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, lads. It's been a pleasure.
No problem at all. And good luck with the Spurs writing. Just again, for anybody who's listening, just repeat your website if you can.
Yeah, sure. It's hurricaneseason.wordpress.com.
Great stuff. So check out the blog there and contribute and get involved. And good luck. All the best with that, mate. And thanks for coming on the show.
Cheers. Thank you.
As I say, we'll be back next week for a post-Stoke City autopsy, if you like. And we'll have the regular Spurs talk. We'll have Spurs on and all of the best of the week from White Hart Lane. Other than that, guys, let's have a great week. And as always, come on, you Spurs.